In our last covenant there is another article, which, without the oblivion or neglect of any of the rest, we wish may be well remembered at this time, namely, that we shall assist and defend all that enter into this league and covenant in the maintaining and pursuing thereof, and shall not suffer ourselves directly or indirectly, by whatever combination, persuasion, or terror, to be divided and withdrawn from this blessed union and conjunction, whether to make defection to the contrary part, or to give ourselves to a detestable indifferency or neutrality in this cause. According to that article, men's reality and integrity in the covenant will be manifest and demonstrable, as well by their omissions as by their commissions, as well by their not doing as by their doing of evil. He that is not with us is against us, and he that gathereth not with us scattereth. Whoever he be that will not, according to public order and appointment, adventure his person, or send out those that are under his power, or pay the contributions imposed for the maintenance of the forces, must be taken for an enemy, malignant, and covenant breaker, and so involved both into the displeasure of God and censures of the Kirk, and no doubt into civil punishment also, to be inflicted by the state. And if any shall prove so untoward and perfidious, their iniquity shall be upon themselves, and they shall bear their punishments. Deliverance and good success shall follow those who with purpose of heart cleave unto the Lord, and whose hearts are upright towards his glory. When we look back upon the great things which God hath done for us, and our former deliverances, out of several dangers and difficulties which appeared to us unsuperable, experience breeds hope. And when we consider how, in the midst of all our sorrows and pressures, the Lord our God hath given us a nail in his holy place, and hath lightened our eyes with the desirable and beautiful sight of his own glory in his own temple, we take it for an argument that he hath yet thoughts of peace and a purpose of mercy towards us, though for a small moment he hath forsaken us, yet with great mercies he will gather us. He hath lifted up our enemies, that their fall may be the greater, and that he may cast them down into desolation forever. Arise, and let us be doing. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. The General Assembly, 1646. Enormities and corruptions observed to be in the ministry, with the remedies thereof. Number 4. Silence in the public cause, not laboring to cure the disaffection of people, nor urging them to constancy and patience in bearing of public burdens, nor to forwardness in the public cause, whereby malignants are multiplied. Yea, some are so gross herein, that even in public fasts little or nothing is to be heard from them sounding this way. Number 5. Some account it a point of wisdom to speak ambiguously. Some incline to justify the wicked cause, uttering words which favor of disaffection, and all their complaining of the times is in such a way as may steal the hearts of men from liking of good instruments in this work, and consequently from God's cause. Yea, some reading public orders are ready to speak against them in their private conference. Remedies. Number 5. That every minister be humbled for his former failings, and make his peace with God, that the more effectually he may preach repentance, and may stand in the gap to turn away the Lord's wrath, running between the porch and the altar, sighing and crying for all the abominations of the land. Number 6. Special care would be had that all ministers have their conversation in heaven, mainly minding the things of God, and exercising faith for drawing life out of Jesus Christ, the fountain of life, arming themselves thereby with power against the contagion of wickedness of the world. Number 12. All ministers would be careful to cherish the smoking flax of weak beginnings in the ways of God, and not courageously, to oppose all mockers and revilers of the godly. Number 13. At all times, so specially now, when the Lord is calling us all to an account, it becomes the ministers of Christ with all diligence and faithfulness to improve their ministry to the utmost, to be instant in season and out of season, etc. And number 15. That beside all other scandals, silence, or ambiguous speaking in the public cause, much more detracting and disaffecting speech be seasonably censured, and to this effect all honest-hearted brethren would firmly unite themselves in the Lord, the younger honoring the elder, and the elder not despising the younger. June 17th, 1646. Post Meridium, Session 13. Act for censuring compliers with the public enemies of this Kirk and kingdom. The General Assembly, taking to their serious consideration the great and scandalous provocation and grievous defection from the public cause, which some have been guilty of, by complying with the rebels and public enemies of this Kirk and kingdom, and judging it a duty incumbent on them to bring such notorious offenders to public satisfaction, that the wrath of God may be averted and the public scandal removed, do therefore require, discern, and ordain that such as after lawful trial shall be found to have been in actual rebellion, and to have carried charge with the rebels, to have accepted commissions for raising horse or foot unto them, to have been seducers of others to join in that rebellion, to be the penners and contrivers of James Graham's proclamation for indicting a pretended Parliament, or of any other his proclamations or declarations, to have been prime instruments in causing published the said proclamations and declarations, that all and every one of such offenders shall humbly acknowledge their offence upon their knees, first before the presbytery, and thereafter before the congregations, upon a Sabbath in some place before the pulpit, and in the meantime that they be suspended from the Lord's Supper, and in case they do not satisfy in manner aforesaid, that they be processed with excommunication. And likewise ordains that such as shall be found who have procured protection from the rebels, to have executed their orders, to have invited themselves into their houses, to have given them intelligence, to have drunk James Graham's health, or to be guilty of any other such gross degrees of compliance, shall acknowledge their offences publicly before the congregation, and be suspended from the communion, and while they do the same, and further discerns and ordains that all persons in any ecclesiastical office guilty of any decrees of compliance before mentioned shall be suspended from their office and all exercise thereof, for such time as the quality of the offence and condition of the offenders shall be found to deserve. And the Assembly hereby declares that presbyteries have a latitude and liberty to aggrieve the censures above specified, according to the degrees and circumstances of the offences, and gives in like manner the same latitude and liberty to the commissions of the Assembly for public affairs, who have also power to try and censure the offenders in manner above expressed, and to take account of the diligence of presbyteries thereunto. Act concerning James Graham's proclamation. The General Assembly, having considered a copy of a proclamation published by order of that excommunicated traitor James Graham, for indicting of a pretended Parliament, and finding the same to be full of blasphemies against the solemn league and covenant of the three kingdoms, and of vile aspersions of treason, rebellion, and sedition, most falsely and impudently imputed to the estates and most faithful and loyal subjects of this kingdom, do therefore declare that such as have been prime instruments of the publishing of that or the like proclamation and declaration deserve the highest censures of the Kirk, unless they make humble confession of their offence publicly, in such manner as is prescribed by this Assembly, and humbly recommends to the Committee of Estates to take some course for their exemplary civil punishment, and that some public note of ignominy be put upon that proclamation, as their honours shall think fit. August 1647, Ante Meridiem, Session 27, Act for debarring of compliers in the first class from ecclesiastic office. The General Assembly declares and ordains that no person who is guilty of compliance in the first class mentioned in the act of the preceding Assembly shall be received in any ecclesiastical charge until the evidence of this repentance before the presbytery and congregation be reported to the synod to which he belongs, and to the General Assembly, and their consent obtained for his bearing office. And if any such person be already received into the eldership of any particular congregation, yet he shall not be admitted to be a member of any presbytery, synod, or General Assembly, until, upon the evidence of his repentance, the consent and approbation of these judicatories respectively be obtained thereto. July 28, 1648, Ante Meridiem, Session 18. Act and Declaration against the Act of Parliament, Committee of Estates, ordained to be subscribed the 10th and 12th of June against all new oaths or bonds in the common cause imposed without consent of the Church. The General Assembly, taking into consideration a declaration and act of Parliament to the date of the 10th of June, 1647, highly concerning religion and the consciences of the people of God in the land, and one act of the Committee of the Estates of the date the 12th of June, 1648, both published in print, whereby all subjects by subscription are ordained to acknowledge as just, and oblige themselves to adhere unto the said act and declaration, containing an obligation upon their honors and credits, and as they desire to be and to be holden as lovers of their country, religion, laws, and liberties, to join and concur with their persons and estates in the assistance of the execution and observation of the acts and constitutions of this Parliament, as the most fit and necessary remedies of the bygone and present evils and distractions of this Kirk and kingdom, for the preservation of religion, laws, and liberties, and of His Majesty's authority, with certification, that such as refuse or delay to subscribe the same shall be holden as enemies and opposites to the common cause, consisting in the maintenance of the true reformed religion of the laws and liberties of the kingdom, and of His Majesty's authority, which subscription the Assembly cannot otherwise look upon than as a snare for the people of God, to involve them in guiltiness, and to draw them from their former principles and vows in the solemn league and covenant. For that subscription were in approving of some acts of Parliament, which they have never yet seen nor know, they being not all published, were in agreeing to acts of Parliament, highly concerning religion, and the covenant, made not without, but expressly against the advice of the Kirk, wherein acknowledging of this present engagement in war, in all the means and ways for promoting the same, to be the most fit and necessary remedies of the bygone and present evils, whereas so many petitions to the Parliament, from committees of war, synods, presbyteries, parishes, have made it appear that they are no way satisfied therewith in point of conscience, wherein ascribing of a power to the Parliament to declare these to be enemies of the true religion, whom the Kirk hath not declared to be such, but rather friends, were in approving of an act made for the restraining the liberty of printing from the Kirk, yea, and of all the acts of the Committee of Estates to be made in time coming, till March 1650, which by act of Parliament are ordained to be obeyed, were in allowing of acts for securing of the persons and intromitting with the estates of such as themselves shall not obey or persuade others not to obey resolutions concerning this engagement, and for protecting persons under Kirk censures, and so and infringing and violating of the liberties and discipline of the Kirk, established by the laws of the land, and sworn to in the national covenant to be defended under the pains contained in the law of God. And in all these, such as do subscribe do bind themselves, not only to active obedience in their own persons, but to the urging of active obedience upon all others, and so draw upon themselves all the guiltiness and sad consequences of the present engagement. Yea, such as are members of Parliament, and have, in the oath of Parliament, sworn not to vote or consent to anything but what to their best knowledge is most expedient for religion, Kirk, and kingdom, and accordingly have reasoned against and dissented from diverse acts of this Parliament. They, by the subscription of this act, cannot eschew the danger of perjury, in obliging themselves to active obedience to these acts, which, according to their oath, they did judge unlawful. Neither can the 38th Act of the Parliament 1640, wherein such a kind of bond was enacted to be subscribed, be any precedent or warrant for subscribing of this act. For it plainly appears by the narrative of that act omitted in this bond how great a difference there is between the condition of affairs then and now. The Commissioner had left and discharged the sitting of the Parliament then. The Parliament for sitting was declared traitors, and armies in England and Ireland prepared against them. Then not only the acts, but the very authority of Parliament was called in question. Then Kirk and State were united in the cause against the malignant party. Then nothing was determined in Parliament in matters of religion, much less against the advice of the Kirk. But beside that, it was not thought expedient by the State that bond should be pressed through the kingdom. The case now not only differs from what was then, but is in many things just contrary, as is evident to all who compare the two together.